Well, here's the other thing. I watched my entire life. This is all I ever wanted to do, all I ever did do, all I ever knew to do. And when I broke in, I was almost I was almost horrified at how much I really didn't know. Because this is a unique business even to this day. Not so much in the sense I'm talking about with details, because these days anybody can get a ring, anybody can have a YouTube channel, anybody can set up and run a promotion in their backyard, whatever you want to do, and it's not like it was when there was a lot more. There was a lot more improv and artistic value in this business. And what I mean by that is it's great and there's artistic value today. The guys are doing what they're doing because this is today, and what would fly in 1965 certainly won't go today unless it's
right.
done well. Unless you have the emotion and feeling, because that's what's really missing today, in my opinion, is a lot of feeling, emotion, and realism and authenticity. So while I knew all that when I got in, I wasn't really tuned in to how much that really I don't want to say I don't know how much that really mattered, because it always mattered, but it mattered so much more back then because it really was more improv, and you knew maybe the start, but you knew the finish, and that was it. And you didn't have the luxury of sitting back in the back talking to your opponent all night long, or for whatever it was. You had to go out there and you had to feel the people. You had to feel the vibe in the room. You had to see which way they were going and be able to adapt. So, while I knew just in my heart that I knew I could do this and I got in the ring, man, and there were so many other nuances and so many other things that I had to take into consideration that nobody thinks about. And it's all about timing. It's all about presentation. It's about communicating with the audience. And while it's always been that way, now so more than ever is it important, because you have so many things that are fighting for people's entertainment dollar or their attention. It's hard. It's hard these days. But sometimes, to answer your question, after about taking about 15 minutes, some people get it quicker than others, and others, come around to it a little later and get it right.
Now, you mentioned Ken Prichard. I think everyone probably knows Bruce Prichard, your younger brother. Is Ken how many years older than you?
Ken is 9 years older than me. But he was the guy who I owe everything to getting me that first meeting. I mean, he saw the drive I had. He saw that this was all I was concentrating my efforts in. I mean, I certainly didn't care about school. I certainly didn't care about anything else. It was wrestling. He really made it a point and picked me up, and it took me. And then once Bruce was going with us to the Coliseum. Ken didn't. Ken was, again, 9 years older than me, and he was into music. Pardon me. But Bruce and I, along with my mom, went down every Friday night. We started out in the general admission tickets, up high, and then as we got to know people, and we said, hey, they had permanent reservations back then, which means you could get the same seats every week, reserved. So my mom told the ladies, you got to know them at the ticket office too, and she said if there were any ringside seats that came available, we would love to get them, because back then $7 seats or $5 seats, man, it was pretty affordable on a weekly basis, and we got to see. I knew they were good at that time, but I didn't realize. Yeah, actually, I did realize that we were getting the cream of the crop. We were getting like mainstream superstars back in the '70s, especially like Johnny Valentine, Wahoo McDaniel, Jose Lothario, Mil Mascaras had just been wrestling. I mean, maybe 5-6 years when he came to Houston. He was a superstar back then. And so I knew, superstar Billy Graham, all the guys would come in, and there was this larger than life feel to it. So both Bruce and I were enamored and consumed by this lifestyle and by the just the aura and the mystery that surrounded it back then. Because back then it was a mystery. Back then it was, some people knew, some people thought they knew, some people weren't too sure. They didn't want to try you. They didn't want to bring up the question, hey, this is all fake. Well, yeah, it is, but it didn't. Come here, try me, all that stuff. So, and we had some pretty bad dudes hanging around there, and big guys, and they laid it in when they hit you and when they hit each other. And I was sitting ringside watching it. You know, in my later years, I got to be Paul's assistant at ringside, and you know, it sucked me in because I knew there had to be something to it, but they knew something I didn't, and I wanted to know the secret. I wanted to be in there. And when I found out it was what it was, I was even more intrigued that how you pull that off night after night. It had to be so cool to be on the road and go to a different town every night. And believe me, it was.
Very, very cool how you kind of made your progression. Fan, photographer, second, Paul Wash's assistant, refereeing me, doing all this other stuff. Pretty amazing. And you listed that list of talent that was kind of going through Houston wrestling at the time with Paul Bosch. Pretty amazing, right? Looking back, like, wow, you had quite the learning tree to learn under.
I have been so fortunate and lucky in my life to have that in my life and to be able to go and yeah, I think it was an avenue for my mom to just get out of the house and do something. And she had some friends down there at the arena, and yeah, it was very, very cool. It's something that really isn't even out there for people to pursue anymore. It's such a different business. I mean, I've never met two people who've broken the business the same way, but the avenues to do it. There's some independent, well, there's a lot of independents out there, obviously, and there's more ways to break in, but not as many quality places to break into, if I could say that. You can probably get in, and they'll probably use you as a wrestler, and you'll probably go out there and play wrestler for a while. But as far as going any farther than that, unless you have that incredible drive and that the sense about you that you believe in yourself and you have the confidence in yourself to search out other places, which I've thankfully seen in a few guys around here. So yeah, I was very fortunate the way I got to come up because it was an era back then that cannot and will not be repeated. I just have to say that because the style won't. You can't do that style today, but at the same time, do we have a minute?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because my last class we had, the second to last class, the third class, we watched a match between Terry Funk and Harley Race from 1977. I'm actually sitting ringside with Paul. You can see me sitting ringside at the ring with Paul during this match, but we're watching this match to see how these guys told a story in 1977. Yes, that was last century. But they didn't waste any movement. They didn't waste any body language. For that time, for that era, nothing stood still even when they were standing still, if you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. They were still selling emotion. They were still selling body language. That's what they did the other night, Adam Cole and whoever he worked with on NXT. They had me from the start. They had body language. They had timing. And that's what it is all about, the timing, the body language, the feeling, the emotion. But the kids today don't understand that, and that's the foundation of what they're building on, even with the flip-flop and flies. I'm not against the flip-flop and flies. I'm just against putting it in the spots they don't, in the places they don't belong. Just put it in the right place where it means something and you're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, and you'll get over. I promise. Stone Cold Steve Austin never did one moonsault in his career, but he was the most over guy, whether he was a heel or babyface, didn't matter what he was the most over personality at that time because of how he communicated, because of how he walked, because of how he talked, because of how he presented himself. But that took years of honing. That took years of some experience. That took years of scars and bars and all that stuff on top of him to finally break out into Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was never Stunning Steve, even when he was Stunning Steve. He was always Stone Cold, just waiting to break out. If it's authentic, if it's real, and you feel it, everybody else will feel it too. And it's got to be believable. Terry Funk and Harley Race were believable, but nobody wants to sit down and watch that and see what they did, and which you should. And any person, any student of this game, any young trainee should watch Harley Race versus Terry Funk for the NWA World Championship 1977 in Houston, Texas. It's on the internet. If you really want to watch body language, if you really want to see timing, if you want to see how these guys communicated, they're not moving the whole time. No, it's not going to be a whole lot of flip-flopping flies, but it tells a story, and it is a basic, fundamental match. And I have news for everybody within the earshot of my voice. The basics and the fundamentals never go out of style. You still have tackling practice, and you're still trying to catch a ball. You're still trying to hit the ball over the fence. It's all the same thing, but you have to learn how to do that first, and you have to crawl before you can walk, and nobody wants to do that. They all want to go out and do the flip-flop and fly. Perfect. Do it when it's time. Do it when it makes sense. Do it when tell me a story. Tell me how that really makes sense. Now, that's my taste, but I promise you, if you have the right personality, you have the right vibe, you have the right feeling, and it is real to you, and you come out, people will get behind it, right, wrong, or indifferent. Let me stop here and ask a question of you guys. Who do you think is the most authentic guy in wrestling today?
Brock Lesnar.
Yes, definitely. I would say Brock. Because he does not do this character stuff. What you see is what you get. Now, he knows how to turn the volume now when he's backstage, but he's still Brock backstage. He does not let anybody see him not be Brock Lesnar, the Beast. He doesn't let anybody see it when he's at work. That's the problem. Too many people are too common at work in this business today. They want to be just like everybody else. You can't be. You have to be unique. You had the Game. He was the Game. You had The Rock. He was and is The Rock. Stone Cold Steve Austin is Stone Cold Steve Austin. They are Mick Foley. My goodness, who else could be Mick Foley but Mick Foley, The Undertaker, Kane? All of these personas were all different, but they were all authentic. Even The Undertaker, even Kane, the devil's favorite demon, the dead man. You know, look, everybody knows, but you're not telling them. You don't smarten everybody up. Just nobody wants to go see a movie and then break the fourth wall unless that's what the movie's about. So, anyway, that's whatever the question was. My philosophy of watching wrestling and doing wrestling, and I agree with showbiz. I agree with glitz glamour. But without a solid foundation, you cannot build on anything. Anything you do will crumble in the end. You have nothing to go fall back on. You may last for a little while, but that's about it. And you'll be in the backyard or maybe in front of 40 people, which isn't a bad thing. That's what you want to do.